je chona la chanju bode dani chopsu je dage jinzo je be sonan je dola penje sanje do sho sanje jona soje chona la chanju bode dani chopsu je dage jinzo je be sonan je dola penje sanje do sho sanje jona soje chona la chanju bode dani chopsu je dage jinzo je be sonan je dola penje sanje do sho Samjian Tangju Dewa Da Dewe Jela Dembra Jeje Da Dunye Ge Judan Dewa Jeje Dunye Mebe Dewa Damba Da Min Dewa Yerian Chada Yinda Tewe Tanyam Chenpo Da Dembra Jeje Samjian Tangju Dewa Dewe Judan Dembra Jeje Dunye Da Dunye Ge Judan Dewa Dunye mebe dawa damba da minne waji nyere chadan yinda tewe danyam kola nebo je samjan da je dawa da dewe je da dembra je dunye da dunye ge je da tewa je dunye mebe dawa damba da minne waji ni chadan yinda tewe danyam chenpo la nebo I
hope you are not tired. It's a little bit hot today.
Yeah. Mother trace a little. The Chimachi rather than Gosser, the Zao Kari, but all this Toto Doshin. Dimaka, but I know Sunny Nani. Let's get hang on to call this Lena. I'll say the Tanda Dean.
So as we covered the first verse of the text, are there still any confusions regarding the interpretation of the first verse? Yes.
Da dilla karsa ranzo dilla sera. Ranzo guna anda muguna anda masra tana susu. Nina chijama sa. Chidang chidang ita ranzo karsa wa ina ba. Ji pensengi lega karsa wa ina pensengi guna hane ali chewa ina. Ani pagi mishimbala zanda ma soso le ani biao ngre le
So then, to kind of sum up our last discussion, then it could be summed up in this way, that if the mind is informed with the intention and the activities are informed with the intention to benefit others, then this has the natural consequence or effect of achieving one's own happiness and well-being.
지대기 디 컨트롤에 참아라 여러 아니 코난서 로스라 이네 안도 디 지마치 신로데나 아니 차카오치도 디체 아니 디나서 도도도 아니 짜와간래 리디가라 안다히 마제 투에다 베다데나 샤에 케치모레스라 디딩이 터시당고스 이네 쪼디 캐나서 지로 엔데시나 라 디 도도도 짜와간래 안조 마티스타 디히도 제 투에 미치고라라
So then, since all of us have the copy of the commentary by His Holiness the Dalai Lama with us, then I encourage all of you to read through on your own the commentary by His Holiness the Dalai Lama too. And it will become almost impossible to address each of the paragraphs in the commentary word to word in this limited time that we have. But with regards to the actual root text itself, then we will try to explore it in more detail with examples and citing other sources as well. Yes.
tawa tanga sa yin rani le towa ziwa jirangi ran kwa koran shina rani yin la memba tawa rani susu pe kyo yin ba manjian ji matu ju pe chikami jo de dani la tende daya ji ma ra katunga zu tana ende kwa chilengi do susu chikan ju gi me susu la pe kyo tonju ro chi susu la tonju chi ro ji so gi do undi 다가랑 카투 코라도 관련해 야 된데 로차고 되디 대지부 샤고마 된데 샤네 안조 비중 샤바 된게 노라 다니래 니빌레로 소소소라 안조 레로라 숨샤기요 자왕이 시길레로 아니 카라 제리빌레로 다니래 니빌레로 숨샤기로 제 다니래 니빌레로라디 가 지우게 마레 가 투고 마레 가라디 가디베 두샬레 샤예요 마레스네 베 샤바는 숨 봐 단다 디기 아니 다니 रानी एने झेले में पता वाले बेद कोरा वो दिन आशी में पता लाना कुछ क्या वाचा उन्हें नित्ता जो मरेसरा चिरांगी में शिंबाले राले इंडे छे पता झेले जिको चे गुआजी ते भी छने या सुसु में बताना अनि सुसु के गाजी दि मा चमे वा सुसु गाई समय की दि गाजी छमु जरो उदी मा चमे की फेंतो रा जेदा गाजु जुम छमा माता चिकी बोलता ना या गेंदर थों दे छिले
So then, as we move on with the actual root text itself, in the second verse, if we kind of take a read through it, and in the commentary, the kind of general topic of the second verse is mentioned as regarding oneself less than others. Then herein, when we talk about regarding oneself less than others, then at a first glance, and if we take the literal meaning of the word regarding oneself less than others, then it has naturally in our mind the connotation, it arises in this manner, that we should kind of indulge in self-pity and then think of ourselves as incapable of doing anything. This is not what the text actually means. If this is the actual meaning of the text, when it says regarding oneself less than others or lower than others, then it goes against and it contradicts the kind of the laziness explained in the other general text. So when we talk about self-pity, and in self-pity as a form of mental factor is categorized in the Buddhist science of mind as one form of laziness. And when we talk about laziness in the Buddhist science of mind, then laziness is generally explained to be of three types: laziness regarding activities, laziness regarding not accomplishing things on time, or regarding time. And then one laziness is this, the laziness regarding oneself, which is an indulgence in a form of self-pity. So this is not so from herein we can gauge or establish that the text does not mean when it says that one has to regard oneself less than others to indulge in self-pity or think of oneself as incapable of doing anything. What it means is since we are liable to be arrogant, and since arrogance could arise in us, and then when these kind of arrogance arise, to use this practice as an antidote to conquer this arrogance that arises in us. This is the meaning of the text when it says regard oneself less than others. Yes.
yen rani le towa zwa la yen la yunde chane ne re chikare na suzule yaga da towa zigure la ra tene de tanda di ko ta gara si tadi sije korang gi na lo la karana khanda su kharsa khanda su dang trobe che khanda la yu khande ji la do wa in ra sa ja Gitana Siji Korangala Matsili Mataura, and Dinichevin Koda Koramara. Chesan Susu such a Koasland doing a hundred unit and car doing a rocosu the two in a ra. Can't a sutan. Tobits, and is Susunium the Troy in the Ram, Miricana, Cantajina, such a collar drove in the Digin to be Nicolas. Takadina, Susu, Yam Chunshi, Dra. Dani Kone Metasila, Dani Laditan Sosolo, Mebatawa, the Takanda, Yam Chunju Chigo, Susugin Juma, two mother, Tonju Chet, my imbachera, Soso Kazim Mishibaniam the door in a Poshots of my inke, and Tezi Yam Chunju Chigo, Udito Restra, the Mentasila, the Betukona, Manjay, member did go Mares. Ani Jena Samba Tabai. Mid the Dulan, Yapuche, the China Kukuche, Kushuche, and the Chewaina, Taraz Chapter of my inke. Kushe only sympathy in Kushemina Yundo Chedo, Chikumina Yundo Ched, the Diomara. Jella Sapataba Hintabanicon, it and the Jenny Nala, you saw Saluchi, so same thing that I pay the Kuship and Ra. Then the Damada Tapshana, Shadayadi, Une Samasamara, Chagomara. Today, the Annie, the Lady Pay, the Annie made Miss Shimbala, the only Sachamoya, Sameda. Ra, the Masana, Yam by Sama in a digger paying dog. So they were doing the Chitsun Samaya, Teleping. Ale Annie could doing God. So doing the Yombalete, Mission by the manual chair. Tita down to no, but he chose Silver. Ra. Tani ngani kipa ni samne garpe agora ra ko dungi de umana nga de umala ne chanyam ro shara adanga dungi te zungune keme de khona ya ko jungro chena saneti jela ma tsira tinde ro indi gala ani tinde gi ani chod chebala na zo chebala de gala khalo ta shangjong ro shila gora chod chebal zimbar sho tinde gi lo chinga so so le chego sho la to.
Awesome. So herein, if we read through the second verse, it reads, whenever I'm in the company of others, I'll regard myself as the lowest among all, and from the depths of my heart, cherish others as supreme. And when we talk about developing an attitude of humility or holding oneself, or being humble oneself when you are in the company of others, whoever they might be. So in our life, we come into contact with different people from different backgrounds all the time. So in any company that you find yourself, it is very important in the practice to cultivate an attitude of humility. And if we are not able to do this, then we are liable to engage in being boastful or being arrogant. And this does not serve us well in our relation or with others. So it is very important to be humble whenever we are in the company of others, irrespective of their backgrounds. And then, as we develop an attitude of humility, then this humility should come from a place of genuine respect for others. It should not be just like a drama or something that we pretend as if we have respect, but in the depths of our heart, if we do not have respect for others, then this is not a genuine practice of humility. So, as in the practice of humility, when you are in the company of others, it is very important to develop a genuine respect for others. And this is why the last two lines read, "From the depths of my heart." So it stresses the point that the respect and the attitude of humility should be a genuine one. And if the respect is genuine, then you will be able to cherish others as actually supreme. So herein, when we talk about holding others supreme and having genuine respect and being genuinely humble oneself, then I want you to think about this relation too. If you are able to hold others as supreme, then you have the attitude that even if I do not really have even if I suffer through any sort of ailment or any sort of unwanted suffering, then if the other is able to achieve happiness and well-being, then this is a practice of holding others supreme, that you are able to kind of dedicate your own well-being to others. But if you are not able to do that, then a practical way of trying to cultivate this practice is to develop first an attitude of equality between self and others. So if you are able to develop this attitude that we are all the same in wanting happiness and not wanting suffering, then at least this this serves to remind us that they also do not want suffering, as I do not want suffering.
다 오늘 안 되지 삼느라 소소 미신발에 매봤다 신 초든 제마치니 오늘 디디네 치는 가르편도 열라주라 소소라 매만으로다 미신바즈는 캬라 가르편이도라나 봐 디문에 오라 디편도 가르열라나 지단의 진우 있잖아요 미기 튕디라오라 미신발에 부셔다야 버체면 튕디직자도 춘주로 하더라 다 니디 가르라나 캬 냠춘주로다 디스칼로 함벌라야 냠추 쳐이나 캬기 아제 레이마 아제 까로 라지 라 ngaje kawaina ngaje na ngaje chidini jena ngaje le tebi ngaje dipa mo sawara melu boshashia melu thonju chea melu nyapju chea dinzu chama ngaje gile or ra ngaje ngai ko yaga yo ko duore le dinzu chama goka do da dinzu maga e tikal dini moyo e shi kul nyembro cheda ra dinzu nyembo chawaina one khar phelana ka che dile phengi chawa chimala phengi sra ngaje thado doje dinzu moyo aina 디 딜 템비 디바용 말아 봐 먼저 저와 심마심마 켈레니나 아저기 소소게 레야 고사라 치편도 니네 단다 밀렌 카위라요 먼저 니레니레라니 밀레 튼디체 봐미 보셔서 있는 미스가 가요 말아 봐 보셔서 미니 주 참고 시나 소이나 미스마 시르 저저 소소 틀고 말아 찌델에 팽기리 디기 아니 딘데 체발라 때니 켜나기 nga제다 차도도 데차르 마부지 까도라 다 nga지 인사에데 로 까도라 디까우디가라 아니 디 게자 사비야 겨시마네 베 봐 시마 산 카도다나 수수수 멤버 이 삼데나 가르펜도 여러 로텐스그라
So then when we talk about regarding oneself as less than others and valuing others more highly than oneself or holding others supreme, then at first glance, and when we hear like this kind of teaching, and then immediately in our mind it is natural for the question to arise that what is the real point and benefit of such a practice? Does it really make sense? Then there are real benefits to this practice. For immediate purposes, if we think about the relationships that we have with people, if it is marked by humility and comes from a place of genuine respect, then the relationship is more harmonious and meaningful and fruitful. This is the immediate purpose, the benefit for immediate purposes. But the real benefit and the ultimate benefit of practicing this humility, this genuine humility in the company of others, is to combat or pacify arrogance in ourselves. Since like this attitude of arrogance could lead to negative afflictions such as desire, anger, and these subsequently leads you to engage in various negative misdeeds. So then if you are able to practice humility, then this serves as the perfect antidote to arrogance. And so this is out of arrogance, in contrast to the genuine attitude of humility, if we are arrogant, then we engage in such deeds as like bullying other people, humiliating other people, and intimidating other people out of arrogance. Right? So this serves as the perfect antidote to close these doors of arrogance by taking the attitude of humility as an antidote. And so these are the immediate benefits of practicing humility. And as a Dharma practitioner, of course, when you think about next life, then it ultimately sows the seed or root of good virtue for you if you are able to practice humility.
대치체라 당원이 양원이 이거 냠내가라 산을 찍당이네 주저들 단단가서 거기라이 바통대로 식체 양 찍디 가르라나 언니 신한테 가르친 찍고 라줘라 라 소소는 받아 밀레 다시 쉬어지지 가르 라 당한서 제왕하시데 내 켈레한지 차와이나 그다음 당게 뭘 가르친 찍고 라 말 가르편토래 카투카도 따는 거 단다 쉬는 것이 이렇게 보지 내가 미주로 줘라 이는 언제 나셔도는 쉬어야 나가서 제 잠이가 제가 다음에 번에 살라고라 경험만 하면은 건저 참 파 시디오라 근데 근데 진리가라 소소를 까지 침보이 봐라 밑에 파이죠 스까지 침보이 봐지 총들가라 라시게 건저 저거 실리다 봐 텐텐 발라야 돼요 근데 인상 지난 건저 잠이 Tende nga tsu ji ge khalo cheong hashi de tende gala sana ta nga tsu ma phama chi ni wa ni ba chi je ma de tende insa so so ama che bi kala khonzo khaji kala je ta na nga za ame so jo shi de nga kala je ha ho da ba kala khande je ni che tes ngun na nam su pugala lamsa ji khala te ya do tes chi ko tes mandi na ta khar che na samne pe sende do ani chimbo cha samne ya de labda khawa tang we me ya de ne college de khande do ta ne ma um ba mi su phama se di pe di sende chi da ra Within the dog, any conjugal and Yamachang Hamana Shanjo chair, something, yeah, in this some chita and rest young as he can.
So then, from the perspective of actual practice of the Dharma, or as an actual practitioner of the Buddhist Dharma, then from that wider perspective, then the kind of the benefit of practicing humility or holding oneself lower and regarding others as supreme or higher than oneself, it makes sense in this because let's just say that as a Buddhist practitioner, one accepts the fact that from beginningless time, all sentient beings have served as our mother in the countless past lives that we had. So from the acceptance of that fact, we should be grateful to all sentient beings because they have served as our mothers. This is the one place from which we can adopt this attitude of humility regarding oneself as low and holding others as supreme. And now when we look at, if we are not able to think in that manner, then just look at the example that the way that a mother raises or nurtures a child, not just in their infancy, not just at birth, even when they grow up, they have to worry about their growth, their development, the school that they want to send their children to. So these are the kind of like responsibilities and dedication that a mother takes upon herself out of love, care, compassion for that child. So from that instance, we can say that if we are able to accept a karma or beginningless time or countless rebirths, countless past lives, then from that evident relation that a mother has with her child, we can establish that if we were indeed raised if all sentient beings have indeed served as our mother in one of our countless past lives, then we really need to develop an attitude of gratefulness or gratitude to these sentient beings.
Tana majenda to zula den ra ta chana zina khatu tari de nguya chipu samdan te shimba sanam par kajuma mata waina de le nguya chipu de le an tambo saje khoyu de ngusa gidra gomba de le den re ani digi de majenda de ne de khulya chi da te te sai khoyu da chik nganzo ge chala de jojo de den da ta chana chikila nganzo khatu hamma bona chikil den de ra mi shimba ji kale je shi nganzo phyu dan de ra chesan de de ro sanam ta ne shen le tsu ba chai.
So then, this is the way that is explained from a Buddhist perspective. Someone who accepts rebirth. Now, if we kind of think about someone who does not accept rebirth and just accepts like this life as the only life there is, then even when we think about such a person, now just let's try to relate this in our. As a human being, now if I look at myself as a human being, then from birth I had to depend on others for love, care, and concern to kind of develop and grow as a human being. From birth I had to depend on my parents, and then as I moved away from home and entered the monastic fold, then I had to depend on my classmates and my teachers and the particular environment in that monastic setting. And then even when we think about these things, then we are able to gain an understanding and accept that our whole existence is not such a self-sufficient one, that we have to depend upon the labors of others to kind of live life. And one particular example would be like all of you who have come here for this course, you also have to depend on the particular environment that this institute provides for you. This is one factor that is dependent on others' labor and others' effort. And then for like, even when we think about a small example such as the food that we eat, that the cooks make for us, then we have to depend on the cooks for our sustenance too. So out of these kind of acceptance, out of an acceptance of these facts, then we can establish that we are indeed dependent upon others. And with that acceptance, we can try to generate an attitude of humility. Yes.
Chesi pero shan tanda pena ngado majero chibu shawai nara ko mewaine ngado sama so thomla do khala nyu chung se tenazana ngado lo chelele diara imdara ndero petse chiche achi khasi ngado mi sama tanda jero de ka maringi ngalo ndo ka do ka do ina samuda te nye khuzule pechite wara zamza thigyo zamza di ten chugoire ine ya zam di ngado chichile tenge ba khare hakolana chelo ngu ma bo je ba chasha jira 다처럼 사자치의 미치에면서 사자 동물 리강들을 주로원 무치 배제 당사 horm야 라 세상도 무 배제 당대 파이신지라 직기 그런 무치 보여 봤는데 되고 말이야 직 사자 동물 동자 미치에면서 지금 뭐 하시던 초통말 아주 직로군 어딜 미여래 정바여래 지라니 계시 지고다 안지 배는 미 사자 싸워지는 도건 대사 자자 지기도 나들 도나 카르는 나는 카라기도 나지라기도 되게 지에면서 지라 나는 도투 투문다 라 치강 메시지라 세상에서 찍힐 땡땡이 버디 뒤뒤하고 라 세상 잠잠아도 나다 가 굳이 시간을 땡이면 삼해야 돼 어디 남자 되는 사람도 나 하고다.
Yes. So then as I give you this example about the cook, the fact that he goes to the market, gets all the materials to cook for us, and then actually cooks the food for us, then it is liable, it is natural for us to think that I actually pay for these services. So I actually pay for these services. So it doesn't really make sense to kind of to respect respect the fact that the cook makes food for us. And then we can also think like, okay, if not this place, then I can go to a hotel and pay for the same services. Now, if we look at this attitude closely, then it is a very wrong attitude to adopt, because money is not everything. So if you had all the money in the world and then you go to a no man's land, then what are you going to do with all that money? Would you be able to sustain yourself with all that money that you have? Then it is impossible for someone to sustain oneself with all the money in a no man's land. So from that example, we know that human beings are to be able to survive and sustain themselves has to depend upon others and need to form a community. So this is why it is wise to adopt an attitude of humility and respect for others. Yes.
디지지만 점리가라 카투만저 따오나 지금 나차진네 중앙이나 파츠 땡이로 파체로 벤조로 파체로 파츠 또 땡데고라 소소 계기 맞잖아 제컵도 제컵 파츠 땡데고라 먼저 카라사야나 신바도 들려가 치주디 제컵 신바 파츠 땅데도 손데이라 도쇼레미주도 파땅 파쇼레미주도 추땅 안데로 그건 정말 봐 저비도 그런 항상 이여로 세상 찍기를 찍고야 차고라 전화가자 원이 시기에 가르치고라 지금 안데로 삼스코이나 근데 상담을 하시기 미 참고로 차는다.
So it is very important to have an acceptance of this relation of interdependence or dependence that we have on each other. From a wider perspective, if we look at the way that countries engage in trade and commerce with each other, then certain products that are not available in other countries are exported from a country, and then certain unique products from that country is imported into the same country. So from this globalized market and the relation of the globalized market, we can understand the relation of interdependent nature of our existence. Yes.
세상 단단한 수 삼단단데 로레베 디어 칼로 잠잠가 슈 인사메라 베소소마도 멜라니아 가지 치레오라 잠잠가 나를 조시 나 이신이 러브는 신이 무도 나를 벤조메 가지는 소소 두시실레오 티디칼 따리 소소소소 키우 카르자올라나 근데도 나 조시 인테나 소소 올라면 멤버도 가실라 이제 대사 카마메 매직 베칼 카보도 Ra, and this is suggested than a Kazikaledo. Tonsultan to society, our control of the charge, it was do some leader. That's also not shooing all the Yachi, some of the little do just logic, my dear Chevon. So the gala share you and there you enjoy you, number you, the Skakushima. Then this is Taparo, Dotuna, and this Hambaka, Kunyamoda, which I do.
So the way that the human mind works is very funny, and the same mind which is full of arrogance and which says that I am very self-sufficient and so on and so forth, at one point in time the same mind, it wallows in self-pity too. So this is the absurd nature of the way the mind works, and it is funny in that sense that the same mind can be arrogant, and the same mind will wallow in self-pity. And so then, in that instances, how do we approach this contradictory nature of the mind? As we look at those who are less fortunate than ourselves, then develop an attitude of contentment. And then, as you begin to feel like arrogant yourself, then to kind of confront that arrogance immediately, and then to look for people who are more accomplished than you. And then that will serve to curb that arrogance.
Teacher, any young child seen me George the robot was showing the ra. That me number also told you the legal. Told you that chip under the other mission, but I could chew what the Yapuchi Shida. Then the chitun one Yapur patient and someone chitun the Hansa Yapura. Casey didn't Matuina. Mill Tonju Majera. Tonju some chair and Tonju Chen Yamunda. Tonju Chen and the Pevegi Shetan is in 9. Tampejia. Ribigan of Dozilla.
La Ribigan.
Come Ritzer in Jacala Gambala or Datsar. Tigan and Dozitana, Gangan Gangi Shower. If you Joe the Nijet could upon Joe. Joe did another eye coach in La Matonjushana. I think on the Ribigan Dozina. Ra. And the Lepja, Ribigan Dozimatas, like Lagura. And this is Nandi Tampedo, which you read. Kojichimbuda.
So this is the practice that we should aspire to be humble and to respect others genuinely. So if you're not able to do that, then a more practical way of approaching it is not to humiliate others who are already suffering, not to refrain from engaging in such an act. So this is a more practical advice, or more achievable practice for us. There is a traditional Tibetan saying, you should not stomp on someone who has already slipped. So if someone is already suffering, then you should not humiliate him more by using harsh words or belittling that person. So even though this is just a traditional Tibetan saying, but I think it has a very good practical application in the cultivation of positive qualities of the mind. Yes.
Teacher, and the Tangas, patient you do the city to Loro, I think I'll quite and it the Nagirana pig on down around side or Jitanging Arakan, some Koju the Shira, Chance Dimoloda, and Santanga, Kunda, and six Mambu Kayomata. Tell only usually in a deputa, what is also good. Sometimes I enjoy the tuna dior. Anzo page shing I mambo drain and di Shirapendo. Kanji Manning Anzo Lodis, Joatangora, Titan tuna dior. Mambo shoe, Mambo shoe, Jangda, ticket as Rachumara. Six shillow achievement Majan dig Joatantuna, Diora. Maranzo, that Joalan and Joatachu, Marimahoma, Missinalo, Sosoya, Chipum, some Stantuni Chanadora, so. Milipetonoya, Shuri, Pematona, Susukusuto, the Nemachaya, Lonjoatan on the Pebra.
So then, as we kind of study the text in this manner, then I don't find it that important that we should address and try to decipher all the words and meanings that are in the text word to word, or in the commentary word to word. I think the important thing here to do is to kind of, even if you read one text or one verse or two words, then to try to reflect and contemplate on that verse deeply, and then try to see if there is some practical application that you can take from the text. This is more important. I find this more important. And then the whole aim of this course should be this, that one is able to transform the way one thinks, or the way or your own mind, and this does not have to be like immediately the whole aspect of your thinking, but like small practical things that you can take from each of the verses by reflecting and contemplating on it on your time. So I encourage you all to read the commentary and the text in your free time too. Yes. So far, if you have any questions.
Yeah.
I'm remembering that once during a talk, there was a challenge with His Holiness. There was a difficult translating the phrase self-hate, and I guess I want to use that to practice a question I'm always struggling with, which is how to maintain some of these teachings in a different context, like without a sangha, of being amongst a community like this.
So what was the question regarding self-hate?
Well, I was just using it to frame that, like, these very different ways of thinking, and to be amongst a sangha and receiving the teachings, it seems kind of like we can put into practice here, and then sometimes I guess the question is how to maintain that going out of this bubble.
단다 대랑안조 예주유디 쿠르육 디스 믹세로지라.
네.
아니 최도념도 예주 쿠르유로지 이 생겨라다.
네.
아니 대마인베 아니 스스남지 스스스스 마가베 초아도 슈침부지 레이서모라야.
스스로 전화마가
마가 디 페게노 징미스 주레민다 스스스스 마가와래 로지마시. 인진나 셀프-hate 돌라기다.
self-hate.
아니 다 데데치디 좀바 쿠르유 딘델라 송추슈 아니 최도념도 예디 좀바다 따오 라렌 타르투사레 삼벨로도 지라. 예나야다 최도메 쿠르유 딘데메 Dinde chidis ma laling khandes tar gores tar khakbo do chai tas
tandai khona lewa thgatne digen ra khona tab de la de wo ina la tara ani ngam judi kana samtana kharla tora khona tan self head la khona magawa di khandes chai do khoro liu le chai do samtana chai do khorangi chedang la chai yena khandes sirwa an chang di chang lab de wo na inji mi jing ngam di ya lab shala yimra ani khona la de wo la ngam judi kana samtana pa ropa chen la chora.
So then if you are comfortable sharing with us what do you mean by this self-hate? Is it self-hate regarding like your own body or physical appearance, or is it the way that you act that you hate, or is it the fact that you hate the way you think? So what do you really mean by this self-hate in this manner? And if you are comfortable sharing this with us, then it will be more convenient for me to address the question.
Thank you. I was really referring to a talk that I heard where there was a challenge even translating that it seems like His Holiness couldn't even understand that anyone could hate themselves. And when I heard that, I reflected on my own experiences and the experiences of many of my peers growing up in the West who have identified with that for various reasons, whether it's body image or hierarchy of some sort. And it's just stuck with me a lot about feeling as I move between different worlds, like between Ganj and New York or something, that there's just a different kind of support system. So I don't know if that clarifies it, but I think it's less personal about me and more just like something that touched me a lot. That the question for me was, wow, other people don't even hate themselves, like they never experienced that, whereas I came from a community where that's very normal.
The conceptual nima di tiwatida. This is a self-hate the Jejurgi Jurthuya Kabudus. Pivana the Jiomara. Self-hate and a Kabutsici. In conceptual self-hate and Pivana Jurjo Divani Gotsuya Kabuchasons. And didn't Tongdu Ambassador and Hansansons. Mikashi Susul Magoa, so a Chia Messare Sameroji. Ra, any Inayas Koran Salon Chusaki Koryu Chiso. and Koranda will onyam robot in there. Kundu Sangmala Tahargi Soa the yours, self hate len, Susu Migadi, Padi Chirdan Susu Subugi Chiklaira, Zemezigi, Kijadoji, Maga Yungres, and in Chirdan Korim Doji Rakrans, Chizona, Tome, Tinderoji, Kembegi, Yang Susula, Miga, Swadoji, Shuchumuki Geser. And Konzo, Tindechizo Logani, Tonrada, then a Meglorta, New York, Aril. Megrol Lena, ni bed logaritus, Midusula, Nangula Yomara, self hate lands of Pebadojina. New York dollar dona, Mimanche, the Susus Latis Mega as Washington Poster. What the Anita Candesinas?
Tadi ngala susumagala di tentamburura. Susumagala kan chain. Then sometimes ngachi to mundu jumune, they are dining in the as a patient of the Euro, the Dichi Master. The chance of the Susula Magawa, the Handes Chagilana, the Loch Jobji Resadigala, Pamala Maten, Chipu Negdo, Chipu Susu, Pamata Pingat and Maten, Susu, Lagache, Susu, Sochi Roda. Tigi Jamin Gomino, Chagmino, Marang, sometimes Tangala Locho Jeres, and Tapamangala Chimare, Tangarang or Chiguritan, Tindiki, sentence ligament or something. Telling you this low Chunjucheti, Kangido the Machoni, and it be the ligament or Maranga, that's what Hamza, Tindiki ligament or some chick. And that chick day, Susu Mishmala Maden, Sosuchipo, Dedera, and put a new way. Then Pebashon can do this. So you propose a drug, she chat on how holiday, and it's going up her jido. Yeah. And in some Hagimi can do, Nachi put him to collect, hang to collect the Paradility. Not so much about Rocheda. So she put some done in Tangaro, Naran, some much about Tango Jacoyo Mare, Nazo Mulum Baldere, the Mrs. Pamada Pingachi, Dela Yomare, the net rotate another, but the Mitchell rotate, somebody here, right? You mean that? I think I'm Mitsukora, Shijil Lumbadel, Ra, Susu Pama, Pinga Tuema, Kabaya Dolma the Cho, then the dog son of Lamson Yombach, Ra, Munet, and this some time. That you get, should did this on the Pandon career. Ra, and young son of Shochi or Tana, Sension of Zuchipumare, Jacob Mumble Kangere, Kashi Jacob, Yoba in a Kangere, Siamea to him, come by Mumble. Ra. Dauda Shalania, this Masambama Charuda. Tindedo on the Sanatai Grace and Dra.
So then, personally, for me, too, the self-hate is a very new concept that I'm hearing for the first time. But self-pity is mentioned in the text, and then it is described as a form of laziness, wherein you look at yourself as being incapable of doing anything. Self-pity is mentioned, but self-hate, this I'm hearing for the first time, and I do not really know like where this springs from. But now I'm just guessing. Now, from my experience of interaction with foreigners, then I realize that you have the system wherein as soon as you turn 18, then you have to be independent, and then you need to move away from your parents or your home, and then try to stand on your own 2 feet. And at that young age, since that big responsibility to stand on your own 2 feet and to be independent, then sometimes that responsibility may be a little bit too big to shoulder for such a young person. Maybe it stems from this. This is a guess estimation. I'm not sure. And another thing that I notice is that maybe the self-hate comes from a self-driven isolation. This loneliness that we create for ourselves, and maybe it springs from this place, the self-driven isolation, that you need to be so self-sufficient, independent, and pursue your own thing, that you do not really have the time or the motivation to kind of have meaningful engagement with the community or others. So this puts you. Then, if you are if you are isolated in this manner, then it is natural for that person to become kind of bored with oneself. And then maybe self-hate develops in this manner. This is all guess estimation. I'm not sure where it comes from. Now I want to also apply this to us as Tibetan who live in exile. So if we look at the exile life, then if we kind of look at our situation and think only about the miseries the fact that we are in exile, that we cannot even call our near and dear ones who are still in Tibet, and that we have to spend this whole life without a country in someone else's country. And if we keep thinking about this misery of the exile life itself, then we could almost go mad just thinking about the miseries of exile. So rather than that, in the Tibetan way of living a life is to kind of just be forthright with your feelings with your friends. If you're feeling bored, if you're feeling lonely, then to engage in the community, go out, drink tea with your friends, talk about it, and then as you are able to have meaningful engagement with your friends and community, then naturally your boredom, or your like boredom with self, or your like boredom kind of, and the kind of like self-pity that develops for you is kind of mitigated in this sense that, oh, all of us are the same now. We all go through the same experience of exile, and we can actually like work towards like elevating this feeling of suffering rather than just like keep focusing on the miseries. So this is one approach maybe I encourage. Yes.
Chidang ganzu kibu layadra, kibu layad yunu nungju de penju yoba tsanji ge di pengimda. Kasarang ge gilhadla ora penzi gize ya. Korang ge sunche chi nyemba. Di pengi jo tongsra. Nyama chidang ganzu chik do anzamza chik lo ju de dung de kan lai nangzo. Diragi do. Tapchero. Ge nangma chela chik ge lo ju chi sungzu ani jebu chi res. Jebu de nai sara. Jebu de nai chena ani tane ta jebu chamina kharina te michi chamba de ndo yesir tane sar ndo nganzo jebu de penna yudu sa ni kuchi te thaya gi thapsi staro chingna ne kono shin sara nde ni shidi gana ni chamba de ani nye yung jebu de thaya gi thapsi tang hosra ine cha thumbala do ni kasa khala do ni ra me chi shu chi me simba chi phi chi ge de thung yo shedo kharsi odi khishos te di khim ani nganzo jebu la yo ina ni jebu thai res ba tela ne konzo ge tande di laga chin ne jaga tang do a jaga tang do semba chi de pera khau chung do thamata shi la ras thamata shi semba chi de ras tana semba chi de ra di gala ra tila de twast de ine ya anti ra chi de ra di gala chi de sene la ne mi tulo khora me jo ang hu chi ya ba ko chi re ta tikki mane ko ti sha yo ma kala de lo tulo khora yo ma 근데 제단디 띵hinje 버르지도 미치필에 돼 인지민지 인지 노노지다 남바요 바sab디기 잡음다.
So then generally we kind of associate happiness with a certain material position too. This is a kind of general attitude we have towards happiness, and then but it is kind of very evident that happiness does not really come from material wealth and possession. And in that particular instance, I want to share with you. Recently, I listened to one of the teachings given by Geshe Dawa, who is the director of Library of Tibetan Works and Archives up in McLeodganj, and he gave a teaching. Then, when he was giving this teaching, he told us a story, like an ancient fable or parable, wherein there was a king in the ancient times, and the king fell ill. And now, as the king fell ill, he was trying to look for someone to like alleviate his ailment. And in his search, he went to a hermit or a sage. And as he approached the sage, then he told him about his suffering, his illness. And then the sage told the king that there is a solution to your illness, and the solution is you have to find the happiest person in your kingdom. And if you are able to find the happiest person in your kingdom, then bring the cloth or the shirt that person is wearing. And if you wear that shirt, then you will be rid of your illness. This is the direction that the hermit gave to the king. And then as the king and his cohort searched for the happiest person, they really had a hard time finding this happiest person. But ultimately, they were able to find the happiest person in the kingdom, and it turned out to be a beggar. The beggar was the happiest person in the kingdom. He had not a worry in his mind. And then, when you looked at the beggar, now they had to bring the shirt or the cloth of the happiest person to the king, but they realized that the beggar was naked. He had no clothes on. So in this manner, it kind of illustrates the point that happiness is not really about material possession and wealth. Yes.
아니 지금 지랑게 단다 지게 수술라 지게 마가로 슬이다 이 같은 레월라 그냥 미심바도 참 집어지냐르다 아니 참 그냥 미 요카이게 미 암보다 참 참다 라 그냥 지랑나 마가야 내 고엠다 그러지 신나서들이 땅 앞에 두지도 되죠 되는 말이야 디치지 아니 다디 잡종을 처럼 가게 된게 그래 하고 말아 그래서 된다스나 아니 딜레야 쇼진이 쇼로도 온도가 같이 미강이 유지된다 아빠 콘도 백강이다 딜레야 처럼 끼워라 된대다가 된대리면다 섬에 근데로 소소 지금 잠자 떠서도 수수 강이 매봤어요도
So then I don't really know like the background from which such a self-hate springs from. I cannot really like conclusively say it springs from such a place, but then we can kind of try to think about when such an emotion arises in us, self-hate, then we need to not to be so narrow-minded in such a when this kind of feeling grips us, and to kind of try to have like a bigger perspective. First, the acceptance that every one of us are blessed with the equal intelligence, equal capabilities, equal sense faculties. We are all the same in this manner. And then that the same in wanting happiness and not wanting suffering. So with this, you have a sense that we are all equal. Then you do not, the sense of like self-hate diminishes a little bit. And then another way of looking at it is like taking the high ground that, even though I might have these problems, but then there are plenty of people who are less fortunate than me, and then take joy in that fact too.
Okay. Yes,
I think my question is somewhat almost connected, because we live in the Western world is very capitalistic world, where it's almost always the survival of the fittest. Those who prove themselves as strongest and stand for themselves the most, they will be the winners of the society. And for me, that is always like, when I'm in this environment of spirituality and spiritual people, I find it very easy to be humble and like practice these values. But then when I go out into the real world, these people in this world who have not undergone these changes or not understand these lessons, they will start to take lots of advantage of you. If you don't like come with some kind of picture of self-worth also, where you stop people from taking this kind of advantage from you, but you draw a borderline. So I wanted to ask you, how does Buddhism go with like a concept of self-worth? Because that humility is so important, but like in a world of capitalism, without giving myself like at least this kind of worth that I'm holding to, others will take advantage of me. Like how to handle that?
Tadi tiwa de tagin da tujo do chagi dusra. Ani mazaring lu laurada. Kepsang. Ta chijegi jizo la nai samla tajo de sangma capitalistic lagira. Pi mazaring lu. Chepsang kharidu dila. Kepsang. Chepsang gulu jugni jira. Konzo chongi nai khari nai da dende do re da. Dende gi ani jizo kepsang ring lu ki ani wang chesha jizo jina laira. Misu godeshu ani hamba chashu cheshu survival of the fittest like that. Wodi any jaga thogi res jizo na mi wodi ya thön thogi res dinde do jiras ra ani dinde jina la indu zamba ani thanda na zo chödo do ji kuryu dinde sambo do ji du zamba ani nyamchung ani shen la chao zme de zo da nyamne che lela go do ras de la da ine zamning mane di chila de de ras da thanda khoran nubsho gi zamni jera ani dinna la ani 미드즈라 냠네 요마라 딘데기 따와지 요마라 아니 제상 건조기 가드에 있는 고갑치네라 캡상리에 고갑 구디라 디드즈 마니 소소소라 더 self worth how would you translate
소소키 인가와 소소키 만가와 좀 말해
더 소소기 소소라 링탄스에 로주라 nga da ga zyu nga rin thang zi ju
알레 수술로 통
thong rin thang
된다.
수수수수 통 rinthang tis mazina migi da chirang la khoga byose la khepsang le khare ta gobdo yo chuna khare ine chigiras tinde jila ani nganzu gi mila ani khare susu nyamchum sim mila ani chogdo zien dinde pe khakboras susu ro kyongshi ora giras ani nangchung ne dinde gi jisochi na la ani donglen khande chi gi lamde nas
네. 다 계신념 주주로 제 미기 통주로 되는 지기라 오라. 이내 통주들은 가서 지당 인지미지 추쇼도 통주 세고에 말와. 근데 이 뜻단서 뜻을 로지라. 그래서 통주 전 아직 장처럼 그 초든지네. 야 이게 뜻처럼 떼올는 뜻도 말아. 봐. 드디어가 소소에 담만체 코라 마셔야게 답변을 메신 버절을 지고이나 로봇 세고이나 소소소소 숨지 채우라. 봐. 당아 취식이는 미두절 상말랑 가서 다 이게 뜻다 처럼 기줄은 참을 뜻도 말아. 아, 근데도 갈래 가버려. 저랑 이제 최소한의 이제 상주 선보도 되게 늦어요. 당가도 산다면은 드디어 가냐면 제 가버려. 가시에 때 제돈이요. 소소류도 소소가 차다. 소소가 샤도 좀 이제 뭐 당 돈이도 요러. 내가 알아서 가이라이야 됐을 갈래 가버려. 안 따기다 이제 탑게 봐. 먼저 저는 밀애들 탑래죠. 탑도 싫어. 탑식한데도 딘데 마요야 탑식 갔다. 대삼다 라 제정한도 심지 심바다 봐주도 치도 좀 만다에 탑다 탑실해 줘라 탑 간데 치는 거 근데 마요야나 탑만 간데 라 싫어 배줬다 탑신이 배줬다 탑신이나 인지 민지기 최다 사제 고마대 되지고 말아 나도 가와도에나 탑시여라 라 내가 간데 치는 야가도 간데 치는 야 근데 통주제 녀지제서 이 사제지 거의 줄대서나 아니 수도로 받고 대 수도 마요야나 탑만 간데도 밀에 깨치듯데 사제도 간데 열을 닝이라 나도 되조라 심바 하모가랑도 되지 눈바지는 로이네 일단 마시 코나도 눈바지는 거를 지시는 사고 있어라 근데 인디가라다 수수 상노다에 계셔보라 근데
또 어디라 동네 낭충문에 간데스 쳐고래라 그랬어
근데 미두제였을래
아 냠len 쳐고래라 오라 주 송주슈는 냠len 진이르라
네
네 냠len 치카고요라다 어딘데란 동네 간데 쳐고래서
근데 통주제들이더라 지당아도 오늘 기타는 게 산파 지당와는 근데 통주 진이들래 이지자다 kon jombore tabure tsemare hije yurdi khatu tanang do aw bin jombore khamba chaw chi la jora ti khalana nadu nambe gi thola na chi khelenji ne ko dipasai gi ko ko yashi ko chi de gor mi di da ra dipasai da ko ko dushu la gora ta yashi ya yo maro ko ko dushu do korang gi lende gor korang wala ta yashi yin the gora ine ya korang tanda chi khare ne chi zu lang so khare wang da de khare yo ba ine ti pe ju tan ni me le nya ju ta thong ju ta ande do chi di ga ko 이제 유차고 최소돈 시바인 라 디카실라 단다코 미슬레니 툰두레 로주니시 가지되기는라 그러면서 제가 브라자 단다 디나로 엔데 치디고 되는 코라 교고자드나 되는 시도마라 데디바르로 코 디바사이기 칼로 디츠디 뉴유지요나 디나로 코라베 디바sabcho 모사데오라 밀레니지 체엔다문데 치디와이나 다들 니제기 유로 차고 라 이제 코나 된데 제가 전에 이제 마음바니와 안도서레 사메지 내가 저 사마직 땅에 들으시다니라 이내야 겨야 들려다 nhập 참마 세고야 말라 스디 마이마이에 탑시다야 돼 계신 분
So when we talk about this situation, trying to kind of face this challenge that we find in the real world, wherein like at every opportunity people are looking to take advantage of you or like to kind of intimidate or humiliate you or take advantage of you, then in this situation, of course, it is hard for us to practice this humility and holding them as superior. This is a reality, and now as true Buddhist practitioners, there are instances wherein like great bodhisattvas in the past and great practitioners were able to sacrifice their own body when someone attacked them or someone like put them into danger. These kind of practice it might seem a little bit out of reach for us. So how do we kind of practically face this situation? Then since like in that world, people do not really practice any of the kind of techniques mentioned here, then first we need to know that as human beings, we are different from animals in the sense that we have an intelligence, and that intelligence needs to be used to find a method to live a life, right? And this is the main use of the intelligence that we are blessed with. And so when we talk about method, we should not always think about it in the dharmic sense of the word, and try to apply it like as a real life experience, like a method. So as we look at method, use our intelligence and try to look at find a method to face these challenges in that world, then since it is impossible for us to kind of take on all the transgressions upon ourselves as the bodhisattvas would do, then it of course means that you should not take all these humiliations and all this intimidation, or you should not let others take advantage of you in that world. So herein it is important to know that world and know the way it works, way things work in that world, and then to find a method, a way to face this situation in that world. So we need to think about as we go in such a setting, then prepare ourselves mentally, and then make ourselves familiar with how people would behave in that particular world, and then prepare ourselves mentally in that manner. And now, if you want a way to be able to face these challenges, then it's a matter of generating a mindset in ourselves. And from a purely dharmic or Buddhist perspective, then such people who engage in this behavior, like looking to take advantage of you at every turn and trying to humiliate and intimidate you, then these people are actually the object of our compassion. They deserve our compassion, because at any opportunity they are looking to commit or engage in non-virtuous deeds. That fact alone should generate a sense of compassion for ourselves or to these persons. So this is the way a Dharma practitioner would try to approach such a challenge.
Tanenge dipurula logici etensra chotso urjeri chi tanda korangi dize zoba gomsa yuji chagora mi tunju che de nyaji tanji mudile zoba gomsa yupe yashira shishu tolshi wen de chiche nyima ande chungre 남자들 상이 더 하시 봐 도지는 들어 켜서죠 네 군도 이제 그래서 제대로 영화를 더를 유주 처음 때셔요 아 거기 파체도 이렇게 아니 가봐도 집에 그 유주도 처음다 잘라도냐 미 통사드네 그러디서라 다 군도 쇼 유주를 텐다 이 꼬마다 잡아도 안 도지는 거 군도를 나도에 하리 진짜 간다 거든다 근데 도지는 봐도라 좀더 잡아 아니 군도에 가봐다는데 바꾸다도 정말 초도 아니 그놈이 마음이 담보 라키 있으면 샤샤한테 초주 있어라. 대꾸마도제 대삼단에 그런데 아 고야도 가봐는 것도 느낀게라. 너네 양지 에딩가도 군도 그마다 비주미 주주라. 뜻을 때가래도. 근데 이제 그것도 도지 첼라래서. 당한테 지당이 늦지 게무시 첩랑서 저서. 지진이 미리 산 가르다에 가라라. 권양이 바지라. 그래서 너 콘롤라야를 파샤네 도지 첼라라. 근데 첩제
So then, when we face such a situation and face such people, then they not only do they deserve our compassion, but they also, as a practitioner, are the perfect object of of the practice of forbearance or tolerance. So this is the manner in which you should kind of adopt a mindset regarding these situations. Now I would like to illustrate this with an example that actually happened to a group of monks from Namgyal Monastery, the Dalai Lama's monastery. So the group of monks, they went on a pilgrimage to Bodh Gaya, where Buddha achieved enlightenment. And as they went to that, as monks, of course, they do not really have much on them, material possession in that sense. But as curious monks, they had cameras, and they had some cell phones with them, and they were trying to take pictures openly and then trying to take pictures on the phone too. And then some people saw that and they robbed the monks. And now in that instance, they robbed everything from the monks. And but in a weird turn of events, let's say like the sensible thieves, they took all the cameras, phones, money, and everything with themselves, and then came back and returned the useless things like ATM and identity cards to the monk. And in that instance, naturally a person would kind of react very negatively and try to like fight. But the reaction of that group of monks was to say, "Thank you." Thank you to the thief that you actually were trying to be sensible by returning these belongings to us. So this is the way you kind of face challenges.